So to access the Safe Sexting module, you will head to communitylearninghub.ca. You will log into your account. And as usual, you'll be brought to this main page. So this module series is a youth learning module series. So you will navigate to youth learning. You'll select your sector, whether you work with a justice agency or just in the community stream. And then from here, you will navigate to the health and well-being theme area. You will enter through modules. And then you can see here, safe sexting and navigating digital conversations, which will bring you into the module series. So as of right now, we have our first module launched. As I said, there will be 2 additional modules launched into 2026. So the intent of this specific module, most definitely and first and foremost, is a trauma-informed harm reduction, non-judgmental approach to this learning series. And it was designed in order to support youth in generally understanding sexting, safety, consent, how to engage in an online space in a respectful and protective way. And rather than using fear or shame, this program focuses on personal agency, helping young people understand their rights, any legal implications about sexting, and how to protect themselves and others online. It aims to build confidence, awareness, and empathy so that youth feel empowered to set boundaries, ask questions, and seek support when needed. So this module also complements several of our other modules, including our healthy boundaries and relationships module, and both of our youth mental health and digital well-being modules as well. So as it is common for all hub modules, it has both a journal and a guide. So the journal is a private moment of reflection for the client. If you're doing virtual programming, this can be downloaded and emailed to them ahead of time. If you're doing in-person programming, this can be printed off and given to them hard copy. And journal moments are embedded throughout all of the modules. And this is a place that the youth can kind of take a couple minutes throughout the module, have a private moment of reflection. They can draw, they can doodle, they can do whatever it is they need to do to help them stay engaged with the content. And they also have the take home practice as well, which can help support their learning as they continue to move through other types of hub content. So then we have the guide, the facilitator guide. This is meant to be a working document in the background of your facilitation. So as the youth are navigating through the module, you will use this guide as a script, as an instruction manual, and this is meant to help you deliver the content effectively. So, something like the legal implications of sexting in Canada. Maybe we're not all experts. I certainly am not about what that would look like. So this guide is meant to provide you additional information and script in order to help deliver that content effectively to the clients. So to enter the module, you'll press start. And it will bring you to this main module page. So begin module, and it takes us to this kind of beginning introduction page. So a little bit more about this series. It was also created in partnership with Anishinaabe ASCII Legal Services. They've supported many young people who didn't understand the laws and some of the nuances around sexting. They helped identify a clear need for sexting education that helps youth know their rights, know the legal risks, and what to do if their content has been shared online. So that's kind of how this module came to be. So we always provide these few introductory pages for both the participants and the facilitators to kind of get to know each other, build some rapport, create a supportive space before diving into the content. So this can be discussion based, it can be activity based, whatever that might look like for you and the group you're working with, and also dependent on the age and like of the engagement level. Whether you're doing a large group or whether you're doing one-on-one, the check-in can be extremely flexible and adaptable just as an opportunity to do some type of icebreaker. For the rules of engagement, if you've worked with Hub in the past, the rules of engagement page can be something that you skip. If you're working with an individual or a group of individuals regularly, you can establish the rules of engagement just one time, and then moving forward, you can opt to skip this page. So then we get into some of the content pages of the module. So what is sexting? This first module of this series focuses on giving youth the space to explore what maybe might be motivating them to sext, some of the challenges or myths around sexting, and builds a clear understanding of both sexting and consent. So this page is really helpful in just like naming exactly what sexting is. And then in the next page, it moves on to kind of what the why is behind this behavior. So, common reasons why some people sex. This is just a very relatable and kind of plain overview of why some people engage in this behavior while also acknowledging the complexity of being a teenager and navigating relationships and social norms. So, you can go through each of these four kind of prompts. Peer influence, and this can be a discussion with the class as well. Is there ever a time that you feel pressured online? Are there any like spaces that you engage in or anything that comes up on your For You page that makes you feel influenced to participate? Whether that's sexting or not, it can just be in a trend. What might that look like? Exploring sexuality, especially for older youth that you're working with. This could be one of their motivations behind it. Building intimacy. We particularly saw this throughout the pandemic when a lot of teens in their most formative stage of life were kind of separated from each other. Social media really can be used as a good bridge to help them build that intimacy. So then what might that look like? What online spaces do you engage in that help you feel seen, held, respected? And then what maybe would that look like if that were to turn into something a little bit more intimate outside of the boundaries of that space? So it is normal to have questions about your sexuality, of course, and want to explore that, but it is important to understand that sexting can come with consequences, especially for youth under 18. And in the next couple pages, we get into exactly what those consequences are. So as I mentioned, the journal moment is embedded throughout the entire module. So this can be a moment to, before we dive into some of the more robust content pages, to explore maybe what some of their own motivations would look like, just reflect on maybe things that they're not ready to talk about that they can just write down independently. And then we get into more of the risks, consequences, and legal implications for sexting. With this page, we really want to emphasize to the clients that this is not supposed to be like a scare them straight type approach. We are just trying to provide them with as much information about the law as we possibly can. So we explain the legal realities in Canada, for anyone under 18, creating, sending, or possessing intimate images of another minor is illegal, even if both people are underage. So, even if you have a partner who is the same age as you and you are sending explicit content to each other, that is illegal. Many people don't know that. They assume, maybe if you're the age of consent or because you both are at a developmentally similar stage in your life, that it would be appropriate. So the goal of this module ultimately is to provide that legal clarity. So these laws do not exist to shame you for your choices, but instead these laws help keep minors safe against exploitation, which would be online child sexual exploitation is when children are tricked into seeing or participating in online encounters of sexual nature. So this page is great because it just lays out the information in very plain language. It's extremely accessible for the youth's understanding and helps to ultimately influence and enhance the legal knowledge. One thing to note is that we are currently working with a legal expert to update this specific part of the curriculum. It will include some more information around the private use exception. So that description will be added to this module very soon. From here, other risks and consequences, we move into some of the more real world risks in addition to the legal implications. So, something like your privacy concerns and emotional impact. So, again, going back to the legal implications, emphasizing that it is illegal to create, distribute, and keep sexually explicit content, regardless of yours and your partner's age. This can be met with receiving a court order to complete community service, being placed under custody or surveillance. So, what would some of those consequences be of that behavior? There are privacy concerns. Of course, when you interact online, you create a digital footprint. So, the idea that something you post online is there forever. So, be very like mindful of what you're posting online, with the things you're engaging with. And then the emotional impact as well. So it can have both positive and negative emotional effects. Like we explored earlier, it can help build intimacy, it can help you explore your sexuality, but there are also negative side effects to that as well. Um, it can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, or regret, especially if the material was sent in response to feeling pressure or manipulation. So this can be a great page for discussion as well. Maybe what are some other consequences? What would an emotional impact look like in your life? Things like that. We then move into some scenario-based discussion questions, which help to reflect some potential lived experiences that the youth may have witnessed happening amongst their peers. So you can go through these scenarios as a group, or if you're doing one-on-one work. Um, and they both provide a follow-up resource that youth can explore on their own time independently as well. So something like interpersonal impacts, you and your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, had consensually decided to sext. In the future, you break up with your partner and they are so angry that they send your intimate photos to everyone at school to embarrass you. This is also called revenge porn. So then you can kind of explore what this may look like through the resources that the WYCA has, your rights reports, some different statistics on what that behavior might look like, what your legal rights are. And this guide can help youth and let them know if you did find yourself in this situation, here is a direct resource that you can use in order to support you. The second scenario as well provides an additional resource that you can share with the youth or let them know at Need Help Now's website. And both of those websites are also included in the journal that they can access independently if they ever were in need to access those resources. This next section kind of just provides you, excuse me, with some just like generally validating messages if they have been in the past a victim of content resharing or if they were to find themselves or their peers in one of these scenarios in the future. It can be helpful just to kind of have a voice in the back of your mind reassuring you that you're not to blame for this. So it's okay to make mistakes. It is not your fault that you're a victim of bullying if your content has been reshared. you have the right to seek options. So it can just be helpful to just lay those messages out very plainly, let them know that they do have support and resources moving forward. We then go to the second journal moment, which you can choose to facilitate or not, depending on the engagement level of your group or if you are crunched for time. Excuse me. And then this next section really is the heart of the module. So we break down consent in a way that feels very personal, clear, practical. We use the tea metaphor, which I'm sure some of you would be familiar with. It is a short video that uses a metaphor of someone making tea and what that would look like if they asked for a cup of tea, but then decided they didn't want to drink it, or if they changed their mind and they didn't want it anymore. It can just help frame consent as something that requires ongoing communication, readjustment, care, mutual respect. I'll show you. So it provides a definition. So consent means that you are clearly and willingly agreeing to something. In the contents of sexting, both or all people involved must clearly state that they agree to send and receive sex, along with clear expectations of how far that agreement goes. So also knowing how to set boundaries, make sure you're not uncomfortable with things that are happening. So moving into the activity, based on the information that has been given to the youth so far throughout the module, you'll read each area and select whether everyone involved is respecting sexual boundaries. So you can begin activity. And this can be done kind of in like a peer-to-peer learning style. Again, obviously, these conversations are a bit, more touchy to have with youth. So maybe if this is something you want to break them up into smaller groups or pairs, or if you want to have one of the youth facilitate this section and you can kind of sit back and they can lead the conversation amongst their peers, that's also a great way to deliver this activity. So you would just go through some of the prompts. Even though Amari doesn't want to have sex with his partner right now, he feels pressure from his partner when she keeps saying, if you love me, you would. So having conversations about consensual, non-consensual, and then going through each of these prompts. And this activity is not meant to have like a right convert or like a right answer. It's just a way to talk about what consent and non-consent looks like, in order to, you know, continue to give them the tools to identify what that might look like if they were to come into a scenario where they're feeling unsure about something. And these discussions can be a really powerful part of the session because it helps them identify what this could look like actually in everyday practice. So you just go through each of the 4 prompts together, choosing whether consent or non-consent based on the prompt. We move back into the emphasis on protecting your privacy and continuing to be really clear about the risks while also making sure that anyone who ever finds themselves in these situations has information that they need to stay safe. And for those who do choose to sex, maybe later in life, we offer some practical tools. So, how to avoid identifiable details, what actually happens with phone storage and cloud backups, and the limits of disappearing photo apps, um, and continuing on this trend of harm reduction. So, really communicating that, disappearing photos like Snapchat, for example, are not foolproof ways of sending explicit content. They can be screen captured. There are many ways to kind of get around that, and some safe practices to emphasize above all, especially compassion. Never send explicit media to anyone that you don't know. keep content offline, and express intimacies in ways that don't involve digital content is the best way ultimately to keep yourself safe. So the module finishes the way all of our programs do, with a take-home practice that can be found in their journal and a closing reflection that the youth can complete independently later on in a way that feels right for them.